commence se grilla plene lu, ne brille sur ma terre, et la rose ne s'enplumette ne cheveux. Voici That's a small part of Les Chansons Madécassées. It's a piece written by Évariste Barny and musicalized by Maurice Ravel. They would be translated as Songs of Madagascar, and they talk about passion, desire, war, and peace in colonial lands. Évariste Barny was a French poet who wrote these poems about a place he never actually saw. Maurice Ravel musicalized them afterwards, but he also never really visited Madagascar or Africa in general. So they are a colonial fantasy. De Barny said that he was translating ancient native songs, but it was actually a lie. It was revealed afterwards. It was just colonial fantasy. But they are strangely beautiful. Because that's the thing with colonial fantasies, that they are very beautiful many times, and that makes it very hard to grasp. On this idea of colonial fantasy, I find the image of an animal that helps me put body into these thoughts. The puma. The puma is the smallest of the 5 big felines of the world. It is also the only one that it is not classified scientifically as a pantera. You know, there is Panthera leo, lion, Panthera tigris, tiger, Panthera pardus, leopard, Panthera onca, jaguar, and the smallest of them all, Puma, concolor. The puma is an American animal, but American in the sense of the continent, not in the sense of the country, because America is not a country. It could be found from the lower mountains in Canada all the way down into the southern and remote locations of Chile, which is actually the place where I come from. But in many of those spaces, it wouldn't be called puma, but other names. One of these names, mountain lion, or simply lion. And it has a very specific behavior. First of all, it's very lonely. And second, it builds a den. Mainly for eating and sleeping. And one of the very particular things also is that he rubs himself against the walls of this den as kind of trying to turn rock into skin. He rubs himself against the rock and the rocks start feeling greasy and hairy if you touch them, as trying to turn his surroundings into himself. The puma is an American animal. For the societies of the Andes, the puma would mean equilibrium, for example. Or in a holy trinity, together with the condor and the snake, it would mean a space in between. If the condor was the heaven and the snake was the underworld, the puma was in the middle as some sort of balance or wisdom to exist in earthly life. But Puma is also a German company. Rudolf Dassler hat es gegründet in 1948. Aber der Puma ist kein deutsches Tier. Der Puma ist überhaupt kein europäisches Tier. Der Puma konnte niemals Deutsch sprechen. Even if roaring would transform into words. Even if shouting would transform into speech. Rudolf Dassler hat sich für den Puma entschieden, weil für ihn es bedeutete Stärke, Schnelligkeit, productivity, kind of high performance, elegance, of course. For the societies of the Andes, for the Inca society, the Puma was, of course, strong, fast, but it meant something different. It meant intelligence or wisdom. Because it meant something more than just what it can do. It meant something more than just the productive capabilities of his body. Rudolf Dassler hat sich für den Puma entschieden, weil es war elegant. And you could love a Puma because it's elegant, or you could love him because it's strong. And with Latin American people could happen something very similar. You would love them because they're strong, or you would love them because they're happy, you would love them because they dance, you would love them because they have like such an interesting music. You would love them because they're rebellious also and very passionate. But people mainly love them when their revolutions don't touch them, because a lot of people want to have a PhD in colonial studies or Latin American studies, and they want to use a t-shirt with the face of the Che Guevara, but they don't like to be called white, which is a contradiction. And they don't like to be called privileged, but of course nobody likes to be called privileged. I once met this girl and she told me that she admired Brazilians. She really admired Brazilians, because Brazilians, they are so happy. They are many times very poor, but they still have a carnival. How can you have a carnival with that? And her theory was that Brazilians don't need much to be happy. And she really admired that, because in the other hand, the European man needs a lot of things to be happy. It's a constant need of things. And she described it as an evolution thing. They need more than the rest of the world, therefore they need to take it. And the rest of the world will be happy anyway with less things. That's why, or that was her explanation of her love for Brazilian people. Latin Americans are passionate, as Pumas are strong. And Pumas are strong, and they are fast, but they are not smart. At least for Rudolf Dassler, sie sind nicht klug. They are strong and fast, but they are not smart. And with Latin American artists, for example, it happens that they are passionate, but they are not smart. The work of a Latin American artist is very rarely described as smart. It could be described as intense. It could be described as strong, sensitive, intuitive, passionate, moving, touching, imaginative, savage, wild, colorful, but not smart. Maybe clever, maybe funny, but not smart. Es gibt diese lateinamerikanische Dichter, ist von Argentina, und sagt, wenn Sie die fragen, woraus ich komme, wenn Sie die fragen, was ich bringe, wenn Sie die fragen, wer ich bin, sag einfach, dass mein Name Latino ist und mein Nachname Amerikaner. Und das ist ganz einfach. And there is something exotic in these Latin Americans. There is something exotic. Piyome, piyome, piyome. Piyome, piyome. And you can perceive them in their words. Piyome, 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 piyome. But you have to wonder if that exotism exists, or is a fantasy. Piyome, 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 P-U-M-A. P-U-M-A are the letters that you need if you want to write the word Puma. First you put the P, then the U, then the M, and then the A. Puma ist ein deutsches Unternehmen. Rudolf Dassler hat es gegründet in 1948, aber der Puma ist kein deutsches Tier. Der Puma ist überhaupt kein europäisches Tier. Der Puma konnte niemand Deutsch sprechen. Even if roaring would transform into words, even if shouting would transform into speech. Der Puma konnte niemand Deutsch sprechen, aber ich kann es. Und komischerweise von den 3 Sprachen, die ich sprechen kann, Deutsch ist der am wenigst imperialistisch ist. Und das ist komisch für mich. Es ist die mehr barbarische Sache, die ich sprechen kann. Barbarische in der alten use of the word, like barbaric, barbaric. Barbaric. For you know, English, the language I usually speak, comes to me through coloniality. And Spanish comes also through coloniality, which is the language in which I think, usually. And French, which is the language in which I was singing, also comes to me through coloniality, as many other things for me. These constant things that repeat themselves. Things that I love, like the concept of art, for example. I really love it, and I really love certain things because I find them beautiful, but I know that those concepts sometimes come to me through this way of coloniality. Yet German, I learned to speak because I wanted to. Nobody forced me into it. Which doesn't mean that my relation to Germany is not complicated. In Chile, you know, in the last presidential election, there were 3 right-wing candidates. A conservative right-wing, a religious right-wing, and an extreme right-wing. And the 3 of these persons were all German-descended. Sie hatten alle Migrationshintergrund. There was also this German guy who came to Chile in the 70s, and he founded a religious sect. And then with this sect, he started helping the dictatorship to bury bodies in the woods. War in Düsseldorf geboren, glaube ich. And then there is this captain, and she was Chilean German. And she trained dogs to rape political prisoners. Sie war auch mit Migration-Hintergrund. Und die anderen, sie waren alle Ausländer. But one has to wonder, as Hegel says, if things are more than just what you can say about them, more than just the sum of all the enunciation you can say about them. For I don't treat Germans based on those impressions. Yet Germans tend to treat other people based on those impressions. But it can be a fantasy, of course. And you know the problem with fantasies is that they are very hard to grasp. And you can move through imagination. But can you imagine, without going there, how the sunset looks in Madagascar? How love could feel in a Madagascar forest? Can you try to imagine how a puma moves, or sounds, or looks, or breathes? For you now, at the end of this, the songs of Madagascar, les chansons madagascaises. O rebranza lene, moșunea mi, repose tua sur mes genoux, que ton regarde tan chante, que le mouvement de ta sonne vif et délicieux sur la manquille presse. Tu sois n'andove, o belle n'andove. Te vestir pénétre jusqu'à l'âme, tes caresses brûlent tous mes sens, arrête,
je vais mourir, merton de voluptaneandove, obelenandove. Le plaisir paissait comme un éclair, ta douce haleine s'affaiblit. Et je soumis de se refermant, ta tête sapane, chez moulement, et te transporte dans les langueurs. Tu n'es plus si belle, n'andove, oh belle, n'andove. Je vous languir dans le regret de le désir. Je languirai jusqu'à soir. Tu reviens dresse soin n'andove overe n'andove